Good morning. Come on in. Get your coffee. It's a beautiful Sunday. Happy Mother's Day. Oh yes, here we go. Here we go. It's gonna be a good one. Get ready for Coffee with Scott Adams. Sealed indictment. Must be something I haven't seen yet. Are my stairs heated? They're not. Yeah, I'm getting a little blowback from my Dilbert comic this morning, as anticipated. Yeah, you don't need sleep if you have coffee. They are perfect substitutes. It's science. Don't be a science denier. If you have coffee, you don't need sleep. So, the cognitive dissonance trigger that I put in today's comic, if you haven't seen it, go to Dilbert.com. It's a Sunday comic about Dilbert's company hiring a climate scientist to tell them what they need to do to prepare for climate change. But in the end of the comic, Dilbert questioned economic models, not climate models per se, which created a trigger in which people are going to see it as something else, which they are doing this morning. And so if you want to, here's how you validate that somebody's under a cognitive dissonance because of today's Dilbert comic. And you can see it on Twitter. I've retweeted and replied to a few people. And here's the tell. So when they read my comic, I basically don't say anything about science. I only have Dilbert criticizing economic models. But because the context of the comic is a science, people are going to read it and say, I think he criticized science, even though literally, specifically, and clearly the comic only talks about economic models, not scientific models. But the way you can tell somebody got triggered into cognitive dissonance is what I call the absurd absolute. Right? So if you see in, for example, a reply or a Twitter tweet, if anybody uses words like every time and always and everyone and anyone and any absolute, that means that they got triggered into changing their argument to something they can defend. Right? So if you said some Elbonians are shoplifters, and somebody said, "My God, no, they're not," and then let's say you show them proof that some Albanians are shoplifters, let's say 1%. Then you will find your person, if they're in cognitive dissonance, in other words, they've been proven wrong and they can't kind of accept that they've been proven wrong, they'll resort to the absurd absolute. So in that case, they'd say, well, you said that every Albanian is a shoplifter, which of course is specifically and exactly what you didn't say. So when you see somebody change your argument into an absolute, which is absurd, and then arguing against the hallucination which they just created in their own mind that you were arguing some kind of absolute, that's cognitive dissonance. Yeah, some people are going to call it the straw man fallacy, but the straw man fallacy kind of pretends that there's a notion there that you're just trying to win the debate. In other words, you're just using technique to try to win a debate. I don't think that's what's happening. I think people are actually going into an actual hallucination, and that the cognitive dissonance is what's happening. It's not just a straw man that they're creating because they want to win an argument and they hope you don't notice. Straw man is less specific. Studio is looking good. I think it's all working. I think I've got it all working. I did if you haven't seen it on YouTube, I posted I did it here too. I did a house tour yesterday. can see that. California, yes. All right, so let me ask you this question. So one of the fun things about we citizens analyzing anything that's happening in the news, especially the military news, is that we don't really know what's happening. We can't, because, presumably there are secret military, weapons that may be used. So we don't really know what was used or what could be used or, whether anything worked or didn't work. Literally everything we know that comes out of any kind of a military report is going to be shaded by what the military needs the public to believe to win the battle. And that's true of all sides, right? Every side is going to shade the news the way they want. So you can't believe anything that comes out of a war zone. You can't really believe everything you hear coming out of North Korea about the missiles or any of that. So let me just postulate something funny. So let's say, just hypothetically, let's say that we've managed to hack into the software for the North Korean missile launches. Now, I think that's I think it's unlikely, right, that we could actually get so deeply into their launch software that we could manipulate it. But it's not impossible. Not impossible. So you saw a couple of launches recently that failed, and then allegedly there's one that worked. This one yesterday. So the one that worked, right? Stay with me, right? The last several failed, and there was some thought that the United States or allies or somebody maybe got into their software, maybe had something to do with, in some dark way, had something to do with their missiles failing. But now one worked. Now, what was interesting about the missile that worked? Let's see if you can keep up with me. What was interesting about the missile that worked yesterday? North Korea's missile. So the other ones failed recently, but this one worked. What was different about it? Yes, yes, it was frickin' pointed at Russia. It was pointed at their biggest military Navy base, Vladivostok. This frickin' thing was pointed right at Russia's military asset. And if you look at the map and you say to yourself, well, here's where North Korea is, and here's the ocean, right? Here's the ocean, which is sort of where you want to aim, right? And then here's the ocean, and then right at the top, there's like Russia and Vladivostok, sticking down, and the missile goes like right up there, instead of somewhere, let's say the middle of the ocean. Now, if I'm testing a missile, I'm going to aim it more toward the ocean than toward Russia's military assets, unless we're in their software. What's the funniest thing the United States could do if we had hacked North Korea's missile? We would aim it at Russia. Come on, that's the funniest thing. I'm not saying that happened, by the way. So let me say as clearly as possible. The odds that we got into their software and caused it to be aimed at Russia's military assets are low. I mean, it just seems to me that, I'd love to think that our spies are that good. And maybe they are. You can't rule it out at all, right? As much as I can't tell you that happened, I definitely can't tell you it didn't happen, if you know what I mean. It's a non-denial. So is it a coincidence? Just ask yourself, is it a coincidence that the one recent missile test that worked was aimed right at Russia's military assets and fell a little bit short, but could have gone further? I swear to God, either Trump is the luckiest president of all time, He's either really lucky or we had something to do with this. Now, some have asked me, does this mean that Trump's persuasion on China has not worked because there is North Korea firing another missile? Well, persuasion isn't, it's not binary. It's, yes, it worked, no, it didn't. There are a lot of variables in play. And I would liken where we are now to a baseball game where you're in, let's say, the third inning of persuasion. There was close to 100% chance that given the situation we're in, that North Korea would try to at least launch another missile or two. Yeah, and I doubt that they're done yet. So, of course, they're going to try a few more things. But the question I have, and I haven't seen this in the news, maybe some of you can help. God, I need a haircut. I better take care of that today. Sorry, I just completely lost my point because I saw I need a haircut. So what was my point? I'm sure it was fascinating. Oh, yes, here it is. Here's the biggest question about North Korea, and let me ask you if any of you have seen this in the news. Right? You've probably all seen some news by now about North Korea and the missile launch. Okay, let me ask you if any of you have seen the most important news, as far as I know, is not reported. The most important news is what pressure do we have left, meaning China mostly, to put on North Korea that's not military? Like, what's left? Can China squeeze them financially further? I mean, I don't know. Is there anything left to squeeze? Or have we intentionally left ourselves lots of squeeze space so that they can launch a few more missiles and we can squeeze each time they do until they realize, holy crap, every time we launch one of these missiles, they squeeze us again and they don't seem to be stopping. So until you've created credibility with your squeeze, the first squeeze or two don't really make any difference. So persuasion-wise, no one should expect the first squeeze or two or three to make any difference. It's somewhere around the fourth or fifth squeeze, which we'll probably see, that the persuasion is either working or it isn't. Yeah, so it's sort of anaconda-like. You can't judge the outcome by the first squeeze. It's a multi-squeeze situation with squeezes to come. All right. One of the questions that people keep asking me, and I haven't yet answered, I don't think, publicly, was about the communications chaos in the White House about why Trump fired Comey. So I guess his communication professional said, well, it's because of the letter from the assistant AG saying all the reasons that he should be fired. Then Trump himself does an interview and says, no, it's because of this Russia stuff. Which, because he was nonspecific, the hater said, oh my God, he's saying he's firing Comey to make the Russian stuff stop. But everybody pointed out correctly that the Russian stuff will go on no matter who gets fired, because it wasn't Comey personally working on it. So people are saying, is this a sign that Trump is insane or lost it, which is what the critics are saying. But here's a question that I've asked before, and I'll ask again. If you were to make a list of all the things that were important and all the things that weren't, president-wise, and then you made two columns of all the things that had been in the news that were important, and then all the things that were just sort of lips moving that weren't important, you would find that on all the things that were important, such as, how's the economy doing? Pretty good. How's healthcare doing? Seems like we have some progress. Lots of room to go, but progress. Got that Supreme Court nominee? Yeah, he's actually a qualified guy, even if you don't like his politics. What about North Korea? Seems like Russia and China are sort of on our side. What about the Middle East? Last story I read about the Middle East is that there's more optimism than they've had in a long time about peace. Personally, I don't think there's going to be any peace in the Middle East. But what about Syria? Looks kind of positive over there. Russia and the United States, we've sealed up the borders. We're putting a digital ceiling on it so they can't communicate. Safe spaces are going ahead. Maybe Saudi Arabia will help pay for it. We don't know. But look at all the big stuff. Immigration down 70% in the border just from persuasion alone. Haven't been any major terrorist attacks lately, which doesn't mean there won't be. So all the big stuff, right? Have I left out any big things? All the big things looking good. Now let's talk about the bullshit, the little stuff. How about when Trump said the word wiretapping, but really it wasn't exactly wiretapping, it was just people who got incidentally picked up. Does it matter? No. What about the true reason that Comey got fired? Does it matter if everybody wanted him fired? And think about it. The Democrats wanted Comey fired. The Republicans wanted Comey fired. He got fired. And what are we talking about? Well, did you give us the right reason? Who cares? Lips, blah, 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 blah. Lips, lips, lips. All right. What else? The Russian collusion. All right. Now, if the Russian collusion with the Trump campaign were real, meaning that there were evidence of it, well, that would be a big story. I think it wouldn't be as big a story in my mind as it would be to the rest of the world. Because in my mind, all the big countries are trying to influence the elections and the political process in the other countries all the time. So sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. But collusion would be literally treason, so that would be a different level, of course. But right now, the biggest stories against Trump are either things that don't have evidence, things that are just lips moving, like who said what, who should have said what, did he say something different than Spicer said? It's just lips moving. None of it matters. And Comey told Trump no connection, right? What was the news about Trump's 2 scoops of ice cream the other day? Yeah. So, but I've just put out a very provocative thought, and I don't think I saw anybody disagree with it. So the provocative thought, I know most of the people on here tend to agree with me. That's why you're here in the first place. But does anybody disagree with the fact that the big things all seem to be going pretty well? They're not done. Healthcare isn't done, but progress, So everything is sort of moving in the right direction. But all the little stuff, the little ridiculous stuff about who said something, who, how about the more recent thing where Trump tweeted that Comey better be careful because he was recorded, or he might have been recorded in the White House, and then denying to deny that there are recordings in the White House or something. Now again, is any of that important? Is any of it important? No. So 100% of the stuff that doesn't matter, Trump is doing wrong. Let me say that again. So people ask me quite often, why are you always saying that Trump is 100% right about everything he does? Why are you such a butt kisser? Everything he does is right. And I usually say, I don't say that. Like I often say that there are things that are suboptimal. So here, let me say it as clearly as possible. Trump may have made lots of mistakes on small stuff. But on the big stuff, it's hard to deny that it's running well. All right. Here's another small stuff. He hasn't filled all the positions in government as quickly as people think he should. Have you noticed? Can you tell me the issue that went bad because a position in government wasn't filled by a bureaucrat who happened to have connections to the campaign, which is the only reason they get their jobs? I haven't noticed. Do you remember the time your car wouldn't start because somebody in the department of blah, blah, blah hasn't been, that position hasn't been filled? I haven't noticed. Seems like we just saved money on salaries. Yeah, but 2 scoops, it's a problem. Oh yeah, so I saw Ian Bremmer had a good tweet, and I liked it for 2 reasons. One, he didn't explain it. He didn't over-explain it. He said exactly enough, and then let the tweet do its work, which was a graph of the fact that the Republicans pretty much approve of Trump no matter what he does, and the Democrats pretty much disapprove of him whatever he does, and the independents are just somewhere in the middle no matter what he does. So given that these 3 groups pretty much don't change based on whatever the hell Trump is doing for months, you're either always against him or always for him, what does approval mean now? So if you think you're measuring approval, presidential approval, on an opinion poll, but the people who are Democrats never change, no matter what the person is doing, and the Republicans never change, no matter what's happening, have you really measured approval? I don't think so. I think all you measured is, hey people, can you tell us which side you're on all the time, no matter what the facts are? That's all it measures now. So when people say, let me show you some proof that Trump is not doing well because his approval ratings are at historic lows, I say to myself, well, who controls that? In the old days, the president controlled it a little bit because if the president did well, approval rating would go up. But those are the old days. We're not in those days. Today, if Trump literally, turned CO2 into money, like some money started falling from the sky and all the CO2 went away and climate change was fixed and all that, it wouldn't change his approval rating, not even a little, because approval rating polls are no longer about approval. They're only about what side you're on. So people say, well, I'm an independent, so I'm sort of down the middle. Yeah. Nobody wants to say I'm an independent, but I love this Trump, or I'm an independent, but I hate him. I won't say nobody, because we're talking about polls of lots of people. Is a quiet government a good thing? Yeah, sometimes, unless it means they just control the news. Yes, virtue signaling is essentially, yeah, that explains the polls. So the approval polls are no longer polls. They really aren't. The poll that you want to look at, which is slightly different, is on a topic-by-topic level, whether people agree with how Trump is handling certain events. So if you say, do you approve of Trump, you get Democrats saying no, and Republicans say yes, and that's sort of the end of the story. But if you say, is Trump going to be good or bad for, let's say, the stock market, then you get something like, 55% say yes. If you say our international affairs going well, most people say yes. So, and in fact, for most of these things, there are positive feelings about how they're going. But if you look at the total, people say approval. I can't possibly approve of that monster. How is it living in California being a Trump supporter? Oh, it's a lonely place out here, I'll tell you. I have basically 3 Trump supporting friends that I usually see at the gym who have to come over and whisper to me. Literally, they come over and I really like that blog you wrote about Trump. You know, you literally can't. This is not a joke, by the way. There's no joke here at all. I would be physically afraid, to go to the gym that I have gone to for decades, and to say out loud something positive about the president. I would actually be afraid for my physical safety. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't wear a Trump t-shirt. That'd be crazy. Yeah, moving is a possibility, but my house is here. I can't move my house. That's the problem. Somebody has a huge scoop. Louise Mensch. I doubt it. Thank you. What would make you leave California? Taxes. Do you judge people by political belief? Everybody does. Why wouldn't you judge people by political belief? Don't we judge people by everything? We judge people by their, their personality, their income, their looks, their political beliefs, their religious beliefs. Yeah. Sealed indictment. Mm-hmm. No, I have one house. Thank you. Oh yeah, that was another thing in the news. This might be one of the funniest. When Trump said, I invented that term, priming the pump, like one of the oldest, literally a term that has been around since there were pumps that needed to be primed. So to imagine that he came up with that saying as an analogy is hilarious. But again, make two lists. One list is all the stuff that doesn't matter. Like, did Trump invent the term priming the pump? No. No, he didn't. Is that going to matter to your life? No. No, it won't. But did he get things right on the big stuff, like the economy, world affairs? Probably. Things are going well. About Sessions and drugs. Well, I think he should do some drugs. That might chill him out a little bit. I've seen no indication that Sessions is going after marijuana in states, but I'm watching it. I've told you before, people keep asking me, what would it take for you to turn against the Trump administration? And one answer, I'm sure there are lots of things. But one thing that would make me turn against the Trump administration would be if they crack down on marijuana, especially in states where it is legal. I would turn so fast. By the way, that's why I turned on Obama, same reason. I was pretty much pro-Obama. I know you hate that. That half of the people would drop off the Periscope now. I was actually pro-Obama until he went after states with legal marijuana, California in particular. And then it was, once the government is attacking your state, I mean, that's just an attack. Yeah, bye. When did he do that? Or I think it was early in the first term. So Obama had said he wouldn't go after states that had legal weed, and then he did exactly what he said he wouldn't do. And to me, that was traitorous and grounds, to me it was grounds for impeachment. And here's why. The reason I gave back then was that when Obama switched from his campaign talk of I'm not going to go after weed, and then when president, he actually did go after dispensaries. I think it was the first term, fairly early on. But he didn't give a reason for the change. Right? Had he given a reason, let's say, oh, I thought about it more, or there's some new data I hadn't considered, or things have changed since then I would have said, oh, I hate this, but you're telling us why you're doing it. Okay, so I get it, I hate it, but you're giving your reasons, you're playing fair, I can live with this. But when he changed to go after California marijuana dispensaries without giving a reason, and I'm pretty sure he never did give a reason. You can correct me, but I don't think he ever gave a reason. The only reason it could be, we are left to come up with a reason ourselves, right? Voters. If the president doesn't give us a reason, we have to make one up. And the only reason I could think of is that the private jail industry, the people who build jails, big pharma, perhaps big pharma, or some other lobbyist types were behind the change. Now, if lobbyists were behind a change that would cause a Californian who was following California law to open a legal dispensary to go to jail for 10 years, which is exactly what was going to happen. So if you see a situation where the only explanation of events is that lobbyists have essentially bribed a president to put a Californian in jail, and that's the only explanation available because the president has offered no other explanation, impeachment. You got to impeach. That is an example of just traitorous behavior where someone has, for money, sold out American citizens in the role of president. All right. So if somebody sells out American citizens while doing the job of president for money, which is the only thing I can't imagine any other hypothesis for why President Obama would have gone after dispensaries after saying he wasn't, because there was nothing in it for him. There was no political gain in going after them, and obviously it didn't work out because he reversed. So that's when I got off the team. Very thin reasoning. My reasoning or his? Could go either way. Big difference between for money and for votes, yeah. Scott, do you believe there's a cabal trying to control the country? Of course. Is there anybody who doesn't believe there's a cabal trying to control the country? But the thing is, there's more than one cabal. So we're a country of competing cabals. So is there a cabal trying to run the country? Yes. There are multiple cabals of entities and groups and combinations of billionaires who are on one side versus the other. Yeah, there are definitely cabals trying to run the country, several of them. Would I what? You have two cabals. Grow and do Periscope updates. All right, I've got to go do some work. It might be Sunday for you, but cartoonists never rest. We never rest because we don't need it. As I discussed earlier in this Periscope, if you have coffee, You don't need sleep. All right, I think we're done here. Listen to your news. I'll be back with you later. Bye.